we believe if you're going to do it, the audit should be worth it. The problem is, audits are hard. Yet we've issued over 20,000 reports to 2,000 clients worldwide.
If consent is operating like it should be just as easy to take it back. Consent given at one time is not given for all eternity.
Cybersecurity and compliance will no longer be a mystery.
Well, welcome everybody to our cybersecurity mission. My name is Allie Krings, and today we're going to be sitting down with Alan Wilemon all about something that's super important to each of us. It is choice and consent. And when it comes to cybersecurity, these are kind of some of the pieces that we're clicking through and already saying yes to, and maybe we're not reading all of it. So we're going to dive a little bit deeper into this. Alan, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, love to be here, Allie. Great to see you again.
So, Alan, you are a privacy auditor here at KirkpatrickPrice. Before we really dive into our topic today, will you just walk us through a little bit of your background?
Absolutely, yeah. I have worked in privacy for a little over 15 years now. I started out in healthcare on that side of the business, and privacy is pretty important on the healthcare side. A lot of people
I heard that.
get that. Yeah, people are into that concept. But as I was in the field and after a little while moved out of the healthcare setting to some other kind of industries, I know privacy came along with me, and it became clear that it was important in a lot of other fields too, and there was opportunity to do it a little better. Maybe is that safe? I think that's safe to say that we could do better.
No, I think that's a great call out, and for so many people who maybe have experienced errors here or there or have learned more would agree that we can do better, but sometimes it's the lack of knowledge or lack of that foundation that prevents us from doing well. So hopefully on this podcast today on our cybersecurity mission, we can help people feel a little bit more confident. That is kind of ultimately our goal here, to empower everybody else to feel secure and confident in their cybersecurity needs. So why don't we just start from the very top? We're talking about choice and consent, and I want us all to be on the same page here. So Alan, will you just define what is choice, what is consent?
Yeah, for sure. These are words we use all the time, like in different aspects of life, right? Choice. It's just like what it sounds like. It's the ability to pick between a few different options. Now, in a privacy perspective, maybe we'll get a little more specific. So choice when it comes to privacy would be picking between some different alternatives or approaches when it comes to our personal data. And that might be how it's collected, how a company uses it, maybe how they share it or who they share it with, being able to make some picks when it comes to that. Consent, it's a word we use, I think, as well in other capacities. It's basically to agree, right? To give one's agreement, to sign off on that and be like, yeah, I'm in for whatever was just described to me. Now, again, let's give it a little bit more privacy flavor. So consent, when we're talking about privacy, is that agreement, that sign off, but it needs to be a special kind, really. It's freely given, it's specific. It's not just a general, like, yeah, whatever, I'm down for whatever, but I'm agreeing to some pretty specific things, and I've been informed, so I'm even able to give you that agreement, to give you that consent. And so it's got a little bit more specific meaning in the privacy perspective, but both terms not wholly different from the way we use them day to day, I think.
Right when you're talking about consent, the first thing that I think of is anytime I've downloaded an app or I've signed up for a newsletter, and right away it'll come up with this big page and it's like, you've got to read all of this fine print, and at the very bottom you just check a little box that says, I agree. Is that kind of what we're talking about here?
It can be, right? That is a method, popular method, that organizations will use to obtain our consent. Absolutely.
So when you are talking about choice and consent, why are they so important with cybersecurity?
Oh, sure. Well, depending where you live and what privacy laws might govern you, you might not have exactly this experience. But a big concept of privacy is that to some degree, we've got some right to privacy. And that means different things. But a big piece of that is being able to make selections, being able to make decisions about our information to some degree. And a lot of countries, a lot of just people in general would say to some degree, I agree with that people have the right to make some choices about their own information. And choice and consent is really tied to that thought that, hey, that's kind of a human right to a degree, that I get to make some selections when it comes to info about me, what other people know about me, what they use that information for, who they share it with, what they do with it. And so I think that's a big piece of why it's important. And information about me, not me specifically, the consumer, that's really valuable right now in this day and age. There's a lot of people that are seeking that out. So it's even more important for consumers to be able to say, hey, I've got some rights to make choices about this.
So why are these companies asking for so much of our data?
Oh, it's valuable, right? It's just, I mean, I don't want to make it all about dollars and cents, but there is a lot of money to be made when it comes to data. And that can be different things. It doesn't necessarily have to mean like really nefarious reasons. That could be out there, that exists. But in some ways, there's companies out there that are really interested in information about you. Because if they get that information, they could learn to market better. They could maybe sell you things that they didn't have access to you before, but they get enough information about you, they can find out what you're into. That's their way in, and they can sell you things. And so some companies are like, hey, if you've got data on people, I'm ready to back the Brinks truck up and pay you for that data. And companies are like, oh, I come into that. I'd like to get a little money. Other reasons, maybe more indirect, it's still about money though. If I've got a lot of data, maybe I can train my newfangled AI model because it needs data to be humming. And so data is really important. I need to train my new model, or maybe I need to just get better at my own marketing practices or our own operations. When we have data, we feel like we can get better at things. And those are all, and those two that I described, those are, above board, and also there is a little bit more shady side of people that would like your data for improper reasons as well. And so you've got just a lot of people for good reasons, for ill intent. Data about us is powerful in a lot of ways these days, and so it's very sought after.
So what's maybe something a lot of us don't realize about how our data is being used?
Yeah, I mean, I think the average person is probably just unaware, like in just what you said, what it's being used for. There's probably a connection like, oh, I want to go to a company, they've got a cool widget, I want to buy the widget. And so, yeah, they need some info from me to sell me the widget. And so I think most people will be like, I get that, I assume that. And people might assume that's where it stops as well. And in many cases, it doesn't stop there as well. Yeah, you get the widget and they use some of your info to get the widget. But like we said, there's a lot of the company that you went to that sells the cool widget. They've got a lot of other cool company friends. And those company friends are saying, hey, you just sold that widget to Alan. Would love to get a little data from Alan up off you. Like, how much does it cost? And the company, if they feel like they can share it or sell it without any legal ramifications, they might do that. And so now my info goes to someone that I had no idea was going to go to them. Or maybe I buy the widget from the company and then they start using my info to do something like I mentioned, to train their AI model. Now, I might not care about that, or I might care about that, but I didn't know either way. And so they're using it for things I didn't even intend my information to be using. And so now my info is out there, it's getting shared, it's getting copied, it's getting used for other purposes. I'm out there on the internet in a bigger way than I ever thought I was just buying the widget. I think that's probably the average person doesn't understand how you can use data today and the purposes companies might want to be using it for, and that often is going on, if not checked by some other controls.
This may be not a nefarious example, but here in Minnesota, where I'm located, a lot of us shop at Target, right? It's headquartered here. They are just about on every block. And of course, most people have the Target app. When you've connected that with your cell phone number and your credit card, when I go to make a purchase, now it's creating this log. And so Alan, you know that I've got a little one at home. And so, of course, I'm having to buy, bottles and diapers and wipes and baby food. And every once in a while, then they'll send me another coupon that's like, hey, you really loved these little snacks before. Are you wanting to take advantage of this again? Or
Right.
it'll suggest other items. Is this an example of what we're talking about?
That's an example, but go further than that. You bought a
Okay.
few things that other people that have little ones tend to buy. Now imagine your store starts sending you coupons because they just assume, hey, you bought similar stuff. We've kind of created, this model of you, and we kind of think you might have a little one at home. And so we're just going to start sending you things and treating you that way. Some people might say, well, what's the big deal? It's just coupons. Other people might say, hold on. I don't necessarily want you making inferences about my personal life just because
Mm-hmm.
of some things that I bought. You're overstepping at this point. And so absolutely that can happen. And some people would say, "Oh, that's just good marketing. That's showing up for your consumer and the things they might need." And other people would say, "Hey, I'm into that to a point. I like to be shown things I'm interested in, but I don't really want you trying to, without my knowledge or consent, figure out who I am and how I operate and the things I'm going to be into and starting to manipulate me in that way." So it's a fine line, right? And you once it's
Mm-hmm.
crossed, the discomfort is pretty quick, I think. Wherever that
So,
line is for most people.
what are some ways then that people can, because your data is out there, right? Now that I've connected my phone number and my card and I've got this account, what are some ways that people can start to take some control back of their online privacy when they have given some consent?
Yeah. Well, if the consent was given in the right way, if consent is operating like it should be just as easy to take it back. Consent given at one time is not given for all eternity. If there is a time where I'm entering into kind of an agreement with a company that, yeah, I want to buy your product, and from what I understand about you and the things that you're telling me, the way you're going to use my data, I'm in for it. Go ahead, that's fine. But next year I might change my mind. I might say I don't use this product anymore, or even if I do, I've just changed my mind. We are allowed to change our mind. Beautiful thing about consent. And so if the consent is truly operating as it should, I should be able to just as simply go back to the company and say, hey, all those things that I said, fair game, use my data for this, share it with this vendor, that's fine. I should be able to easily say, no longer. I don't want you to use my data to train your model anymore. I don't want you to use my data to share with other vendors. In fact, I don't even want you to have it anymore. I'd like you to delete it. Now, what's the truth is, not everyone's going to have the ability to do that. Different people, let's say in the US, depending what state you might live in, some
Mm-hmm.
people currently have more of a right to say to companies in that state, hey, delete my data, restrict the processing, don't use it in certain ways. And others may not have that right given to them in that legal fashion. And so those people might be in a bit more of a battle. And
So
so some of
you're
the
thinking like CCPA, right? We're talking like
absolutely.
California. Okay.
Yep. So you got California, Colorado. Almost half of the states have some kind of consumer privacy law that's been signed at this point, and maybe is not live on the books yet. There's usually a bit of a lag once they get signed before they pass. But about, let's say, roughly half the country has that, and that means half don't. And so not everyone's going to have the same experience. That puts a little bit more onus on those that may not have that at the front end. Those big disclaimers when we're like, I just want to buy the product, I just want to access the website, and they hit us with that wall of text. Uh, do not resent the time it takes to become informed. Like you gotta know what you're getting into. And we might say that's not a great way to tell people all the things that they're agreeing to. And I agree, it's not the best way. But if that's the way that you could be informed, don't run from that. Try to get in there and see what's going on before you make some choices, especially if you're not going to have the easiest time changing your mind later.
Are there any tools or settings that you currently use, or maybe you could suggest to whether it's persons or businesses to have set up to give them the best ability to make those choices and give consent or to know where their data is going?
Oh, that's a good question. Something that's become more popular in the last couple years are the concept of a global privacy control. So essentially the ability to use a tool, something that syncs with your browser, to basically make the choice ahead of time. It's like, hey, whatever website I go to, whatever retailer, whatever organization I go to, as soon as I get there, go ahead and tell them I'm not into it. Opt out of everything. Tell them they can't put cookies on me. Tell them I don't want to be tracked. Go ahead and just proactively tell them. So no matter what they show me, or no matter what hoops they would like me to potentially jump through, I'm already just like wearing a big sign as I walk into the building. I'm letting y'all know up front my preferences about this. And then if I change my mind, if I get to know the company a little bit more, I read about what you're offering, I might opt into some of this if I think that I'm interested in the product. I think that's the popular way people are starting to head this way. The more an old school way, and this is people don't like this, but like an old school way is find a different company, like shop around a little bit more. There are so many opportunities for people to really leverage the power of their wallet when it comes to this. That if I go to an organization offering me the widget and I don't like what they say I have to agree to get the widget, find an alternative. Like let them know like you're not going to get revenue from me because I'm not into this. I think we're seeing more and more consumers changing, organizations, companies that they have purchased from lately because they're not into the privacy practices. And that's a great spot for us to be in, that we've got the options. You can make better choices when you have better options. And so don't be afraid to delay gratification. That is what companies are gaming on a bit, that you just want to buy the thing, you just want to get the website, you're going to click accept, right? And too many times we do that, we let them win with that, right? And so maybe take the time and shop around. If you're not finding the privacy partner you want in an organization, wait until you do.
This might be off topic. And so I'm going to ask a question and we'll see if you can help us out here. But, when I was growing up, it wasn't so much that a lot of people had like personal computers. Like right now, I'm on my personal work issued computer. But growing up, I'd walk into any of my friends' homes and there was like a computer room. It was like the family shared computer. And so let's just say, this might be 10, 15, 20 years ago. Wow, I'm old all of a sudden. um, and, maybe that was where my dad was doing some of his work emails. But then I was going on after hours and looking up fun videos online or, looking on fun other websites and clicking accept and yep and sure, because, I was just a kid and didn't have a clue what privacy was or meant. So I'm wondering today, how can people support their families at home to have those privacy policies when maybe there is a shared device in the home?
Oh, that's a big question, right? Especially, the angle from the adults and kids perspective, right? So much of the internet is not well suited for kids. Just because of maybe it's the content, maybe it's because of financial implications, maybe it's because of purchasing, and kids most kids do not have consent from the parents to grab the credit card and just start purchasing stuff online. And so, yeah, recognizing that in many cases, the internet, as you interact with it, often doesn't ask and it can't perceive what kind of person are you? Are you an adult that's able to even make some of these choices and give meaningful consent? That's a big part of consent, that term meaningful. A minor is not able to give meaningful consent for data processing because they're just not able to do that. They're a minor. And so being aware that companies will not always have the right guardrails up for this. Highly performing companies from a privacy perspective, they will do their utmost. They will try to put up guardrails, especially if there's potential for where a minor, their data might be processed. And there's tons of great use cases for that, where minor data needs to be processed to provide services to families. But making sure that the guardians are able to give consent and that they are tied in and that if the company can't perceive that transactions or the interaction can't proceed any further. But you're asking about the people at home. So that's a huge thing, right? In that shared devices or even devices that kids might have on their own. I mean, kids have phones today and kids have devices for school and for other purposes. It's a gap. It's admittedly a gap. I would love to give a great answer like, do these three things and you're going to feel great about your situation.
Alan, that's simple. Just do
No,
that.
I wish. As soon as I think of the three things, it's admittedly a gap. And so just having this conversation and being aware of that, it's different from those years ago where we were just trying to like learn to how to type with Mavis Beacon or whatever on the family computer. It's a different world with the internet, with technology. And so adults should be really aware of anyone that's using a device, anyone that might be making choices on behalf of others as well, to pursue meaningful consent in any of those interactions. Kind of the best I got off the top of my head. Seems gloomy. Good. Seems gloomy, but
no, I think it was really good. And, Ellen, we've talked a lot about what individually we should do when we're making choices, when we're giving consent. But as a privacy auditor, are you having conversations like this on the flip side with businesses and organizations of what they need to do to offer that choice and consent?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is a huge part of what, our clients that want us to audit their privacy practices. This is foundational in many ways. Approach to consent. Company A may say, yeah, we tell them, here's what we do here, and if you don't like it, you can kick rocks. Like that's the choice we give them. Like use us or don't. And so yeah, we might have a conversation of, hey, that's not meaningful choice. There's no alternatives there. It's either use us or leave. Why can't they use you but make some selections about the things that they want to happen and the things that they don't want to happen? Are you giving them specific choices, not all or nothing? That's kind of the illusion of a choice, all or nothing. It's not a good choice. And especially if the product or service is really important, not just kind of a widget that's fun for a hobby. If this is a financial product, this is a healthcare product or service, it's harder to make some of those choices if you feel like, man, I just have to go along with it. I really need the thing that's being offered here. And so, yeah, that is a big part, as we're auditing and as we're trying to educate organizations, hey, the choices you give your consumers, the way that you collect their consent, it's not just do it once and you check the box, but here's how you do it correctly. Here's how you give actual choices. Here's how you let people change their mind and withdraw consent if they decide they want to do that. Here's how you give respect to your consumers and let them make these choices.
I would imagine you get some pushback on this, not because it's not the right thing to do, but because it seems like it's a pretty involved process as opposed to saying, here, please go ahead and click agree instead of offering them to be able to make the choice, right?
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah. And if we are honest about that, then that's the way that we actually can move it forward. Yeah, it's hard to get this right in many cases for companies, but companies can do hard things. Like they have incredible developing teams, and they're writing these programs that are like unbelievable. Like they can do hard stuff. Like we can figure out how to do this well. And I get it, like consent across different platforms and products, that if I come and I give you my choices, I tell you what I'm in for and the stuff I'm out on, carrying that through anything else I might buy from you, remembering that the next time I come, that's not super easy, but it's possible. And we don't have to run away from stuff just because it's hard. It's not what we do in other aspects of the business. So why would we, companies really demand excellence when it comes to the product, when it comes to the marketing, the sales efforts. There's no reason not to demand excellence when it comes to the way we're treating our consumers when it comes to their privacy. We can do that as well. So it's definitely possible, but we've got to reframe it from we just have to do this one thing and the box is checked, rather than how do we become an organization that gets this and does this consistently and does this right for our consumers who we care a lot about.
What are some challenges, maybe on both sides of the board, from people like you and I who are just regular consumers using a product, and challenges for the business who's giving that service.
Yep. Let's start with you and I.
Mm-hmm.
First, we got to face facts about ourselves. People, we can be a little impatient. Maybe is it fair to
Maybe,
say? I think,
you
yeah,
know,
we want the thing, and
I
we
want it
just
now.
sell it to me and deliver it in 1 hour and let me on the site, whatever I'm trying to get on. Um, but companies know that about us too. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes some of the options presented to us are presented with that in mind, in that, hey, I know Alan's in a hurry. I know he just wants to get to the thing. So I'm going to give him a choice, right? But the choice I would like him to make, I'm going to make that really obvious for him to see. Like that's the golden button on the page. And his other choices are technically, for legal purposes, they are listed on the page, but they are over here hidden. And so I see that, I'm like, oh, I like this company. They're giving me a choice. And I click the golden button. Again, some like internal honesty that I
Mm-hmm.
can be impatient. The company knows I can be impatient. Be aware that at all times we're being marketed to.
Mm-hmm.
And use the word manipulation if you feel like it. But that's out there. And then we call that the dark pattern, right? And other ways
Mm-hmm.
where this kind of illusion of choice or the illusion of meaningful consent is presented to me, but I'm really heavily being nudged. Hey, you should do this. This will be faster. This is easier. You don't want to read all that. I know I got time for that. Click this
Mm-hmm.
button and let's get it going. You got to recognize that that's how some interactions online with organizations are currently structured. I'm not saying that's great, but you've
Mm-hmm.
encountered that. Everyone has. And
Is that
so,
like when you're
yes,
on
sir.
a website and they have three options, right? Here's our basic package, and it's really not that good because it's free. Here's our medium package, which has a lot of these features, but not everything. And then there's usually like the biggest one, and it literally is taking up most of your screen, and it'll say most people choose this one. It has this type of pricing that you're really going to like, and it just makes it so obvious that that's the best choice because it made everything else so small.
It's a version of that. I think it goes
Mhm.
even further with some of the privacy choices. So imagine you're tiered, like there's three options here,
Mhm.
but imagine that the one I really want you to get, it almost looks like it's the only one that works. Like that button is it's highlighted. It's that
Mm.
green color, and green means go, green means money, green means good, all the things we like about the color green, right? And so I
Mhm.
want to click that one. The others, they're grayed out. Like, does that even work? I'd have to click it to know. They're smaller. There may be actually those choices don't quite get a button, but they're a hyperlink and some disclaimer text at the bottom. And so if I really want to look at this page and dissect it, eventually maybe I'll find it, or maybe I've got to click a link to go to another landing page and the other choice is actually hidden over here. And so technically, am I being offered the choices? Technically they exist,
Mhm.
but I'm really pointed towards this is the one you should do. It really looks like it's the only one I kind of can do. And especially if I'm kind of wanting to just get through this, I might click that and not even really read it. And yeah, that's on me as a consumer to a degree, but I definitely didn't get much support from the organization in showing me, hey, here's what we do with your data. Here's how we collect it. Here's how we process it. Um, they're betting that I'm going to click the green button, and many times we do, right? So those choices that really are the fingers on the scale a bit and
Mhm.
influencing us beyond just good marketing, that hey, the most expensive one, it's the most expensive, but it's you get the best value because we take the biggest percentage off. And that's at least explaining to me why I might want to buy the tier three,
Sure.
over the other. So yeah, that colors, button size, button placement, all that. There's a lot of smart people that figure out how the brain works, and it's been put to use.
Y- these dark patterns, usually when you think of like any comic book or like superhero movie, whoever has dark in their name, like the Dark Lord or whatever it may be, they're the bad guy. So
That's
we're
it.
already kind of
Yeah, that's
assuming
it.
the
Yeah,
dark patterns is bad thing, right?
that's
Is
right.
is it legal?
It N Not really. Not
Okay.
really. Um, n- and I'll say what I mean by that.
Okay.
I Originally, I think the term dark pattern was used more specifically, kind of its an inception, in that it's things are so designed, you might be making literal purchases and you don't even know you're buying something yet. Like you just thought you're going to the next page to read a little bit more, but actually, when they took that credit card info a few pages ago to verify that you were old enough, they actually just swiped you. And originally, people were like, "Hey, you people with your web pages, you're literally like causing them to buy stuff. They don't even know they're buying things. Cool that down." And so I think that's where we get a little bit of the original dark pattern. But that concept of people are doing stuff that they don't know they're doing, we've really seen that come over in the privacy world more. And we see groups like the FTC saying, hey, like you need to stop that as well. We're not into people consenting to things that they're not aware they're consenting to. That's not meaningful. So thereby they're not consenting. So thereby you don't have authorization to do what you're doing. But we're just in the midst of that as we're seeing regulators start to say, "Hey, this is not right." Now, the problem is, dark patterns, they come in many ways. Like how how different can I make the choice I want the consumer to make from the one I don't want them to make? Do they have to be identical, or can I make it a little more alluring, but not way more alluring? And so you're going to find that gray area. So if someone's going to say, "This is a dark pattern, I don't think it's right," it's still a little vague, I think, and you're gonna
Hmm.
see maybe that get adjudicated more as regulators start to put their foot down a bit more on this. So that's why I say not really, but it can be hard to fight because people are creative, and they can be a step ahead of regulators in some of those ways.
You know, I like that you're thinking about this shift in the future. And I wanted to ask about how you think AI maybe has played a part in this, like today, but maybe any predictions that you have for, artificial intelligence and what it will continue to do with our choice and consent uh, years from now.
Yeah, AI is a big thing right now, especially we talked early in the conversation, use cases. And AI is a
Hmm.
big use case for organizations that would like to process personal data, because personal data is really valuable to train models and to get them to train on real things like real people. And especially, why do we want to do that? So we can then go to real people and sell them more things in many cases. Or
Hmm.
let's take a more altruistic view to help more people, to do more good for people. Let's say that's out there too. Um, I would love to think that there is a world soon to come where just the average consumer is able to get access to some handy AI tools and empower themselves in some consent choices to say, hey, AI tool, um, one that I trust, a secure tool, if one was out there, scan my credit card bill and like find companies that I bought things from last month and go tell them all, like I'm opting out actually. Like just you go tell them, build it in, tell them I withdraw my consent. Use whatever verbiage is required if required in certain states, do whatever methods are the prescribed methods. But start working for us and like start
Hmm.
empowering consumers to say, it is kind of hard. We're buying stuff from so many companies like every month. We have so many relationships with these different businesses. How can I have meaningful consent if I can't even remember like who I bought stuff from? So, find a tool like AI to empower me, the consumer, and say, I give this to you. Like you withdraw consent from companies, and maybe it's not everyone I bought from last month. Maybe it's someone I bought from within the last 6 months, and I don't have any more recurring purchases from them.
Hmm.
Sounds like I don't really use them much. Let's claw back any authorizations I gave them. Let's ask them to delete my data. Maybe if I have that right, depending where I live. So yeah, I think there's going to be opportunity for AI tools for the consumer to help us out a bit and to make some of the burden of choice and consent maybe hopefully a little simpler for us.
Wouldn't that be nice?
It'd be great.
So I know we've chatted quite a bit about choice and consent here. Alan, is there anything specifically that you wanted to dive into a little bit further?
Ooh, interesting. I think one thing I'll say about consent uh, for organizations, because we like to educate organizations at Kirkpatrick Price, and if any organizations are listening, come on in. Let's talk about this. Consent, it works best when it's at the right time. It is hard to get your consent for something now, for something I'm going to bring up way later. And
Mhm.
that's often the approach that you see with a lot of, the big wall of text,
Mhm.
which I understand its purpose. And it tries to be like, hey, consumer, I see that you're here. Here's everything we might ever collect from you in any possible ways and all the possible ways we might use it and all the possible people we might share it with. Are you good with that? Because we can go forward if you're good with that. And people are like, yeah, fine. I just want to see more about the product. But now they see more about the product and now they found the one that they like, and now that maybe they used it or whatever. Now we're getting to the point where it's time to actually exchange some deets. It's time to give some information to the company. That is a good moment to now get some real consent that, hey, you are trying to connect your bank account with our system so that you can get the service. We want you to know that we use this third party vendor to kind of use to make that connection possible. Are you okay with it? If you proceed, you got to know that this is the only way that we're able to get your bank account. That could have been in the wall of text somewhere at the beginning, but did I find it? Did
Mhm.
I like read that? Did I even understand it in the way that it was presented? But in that moment, it's really clear. Like I'm about to give you some info, and you're saying, before this happens, this is what this is used for. This is who we're sharing it with. This is what we're going to do with whatever it is, whatever situation. That is incredibly meaningful. And consumers can make a real choice in that moment to give it or not, to say, okay, I know exactly what I'm giving this data. I know exactly what I'm agreeing to when I give you this information. And pretty much every consumer at that point can give meaningful consent or say, "Oh, I didn't understand that that's what this involved. I'm out." And that's a meaningful choice to make as well in that moment. So getting consent, providing that information at the right moment is the right way to do this in most cases because we want it to be meaningful. And even if that consumer leaves in that moment and they don't buy
Mhm.
the thing, uh, you have you have built up some goodwill with that consumer because they recognize, hey, they told me before I made a decision I wouldn't have made had I not known, but they told me, and so maybe I'll change my mind later. Maybe they'll have a new product later. I don't have ill will to this company who is trying to hide stuff from me. That's the right thing to do for your consumers. So start thinking about consent in that way, not just something to do one time, but each time someone's going to give you some information, make sure they know what's involved, and it's going to be better for everyone involved in that interaction.
You know, you're talking about this multiple kind of touch point, right? Right before they're making that purchase, give the option of consent. What about in general? Maybe this company has some new updates. How often should they be making aware of their customers? Does that make sense? Maybe the company has adjusted in some way or they've taken on new roles. They now have like cast a wider net. They're no longer just working in finance, but they've also accepted this new branch. Do they have to come forth to the people who have given consent to let them know what's going on?
Yeah, ideally, yeah, if those changes you're talking about, do they impact any of those agreements that maybe
Mm.
you've received from those consumers? If a company says, "Hey, we were headquartered in New York and we're opening a branch in Dallas, Texas as well." That's what's on the radar next year. You don't have to tell consumers that. Like you're going to have people working in Texas now. Okay, doesn't affect any of those choices. But if you said, "Here's you give us some data and we put it in our cool, algorithm proprietary tool and we give you this value back." And someone says, "Absolutely, I love that. Here's my data. I'm into that. I'll pay for that." You've gotten consent for that. But now if you change your cool tool and it still does what it used to do, but now it also does these three new things, That's not what they said they were into before. They didn't consent to the new stuff, right? And so they need to know about that. And you could say, well, they consented. I've got time stamped where they checked the little box. They said submit or they said purchase, but they purchased the original tool, not the new one. And so, yeah, get consent for the new stuff now. Anytime a change is made that's tied to some of those choices a consumer has made, absolutely. You want to tell them about it. You want to give them the chance to choose once again. And if they do choose, now you've got that new consent and everybody's feeling good again.
Alan, I want to say thank you so much. I know we're about to wrap up. I just want to give you the last kind of opportunity. If there's anything on your mind that you want to share with our listeners today.
For both consumers and businesses, I will just use I feel like it's becoming a catchphrase lately. And it is, do not resent the time it takes to do this right. If you're a consumer, be open to reading some things you maybe don't want to read because you just want to get the thing, you just want to get to where you're going, but inform yourself about what you're doing with your data or what someone else might potentially be doing with your data so you can make an informed choice. And companies, don't resent the time it takes to handle this correctly, to give choices at the right moment, to manage consent across your platforms, across your products. You put in the time to do this right, and then you will be happier as you move forward with these kind of things. And so don't resent the time it takes to do it right, people.
Awesome. Well, Alan, I want to say thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with us today on our cybersecurity mission. For everyone who's been listening, if you have comments, thoughts, or questions for Alan, I want to invite you to go onto our website, KirkpatrickPrice.com/podcast. There you can find our other episodes, but you can also go ahead and ask those questions, share your thoughts. We'd love to hear from all of you. Or maybe you're joining us saying, no, I have another topic that I'd love Alan or another one of our experts to cover. We are all ears. So again, my friends, Alan Wilemon, thank you so much for joining me. My name is Allie Krings, and we'll catch you next time on our cybersecurity mission.
When you work with a Kirkpatrick Price cybersecurity auditor, you work with someone who's been in your shoes. Let's see what the next expert is ready to share to support you in your cybersecurity mission.
Hello, my name is John Burkhart. I'm an information security auditor with Kirkpatrick Price, and an area that I enjoy speaking to our clients about is application development and software development life cycles. For most of our customers, this is really where their product is built, delivered, and maintained. A site that I like to read, and I often recommend to our customers, is called, appropriately enough, devops.com. A great resource for trends in DevOps, trends in AI development, and security regarding development operations. This is something that I read every week, and it's always on my recommend list to our customers.
If you want to prepare for success with regulatory compliance, visit KirkpatrickPrice.com/podcast or the show notes to download today's episode resources. We're here to empower you to face your cybersecurity and compliance challenges. Are you ready to join a community of 10,000 people who are working together to elevate the standards for cybersecurity and compliance? It's free to sign up at KirkpatrickPrice.com/podcast or check the show notes and achieve greater levels of assurance today. Thanks for joining us on our cybersecurity mission.